welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. I'm super blessed to have Betsy Pepine on the call here with us. You guys are going to hear her story. She is a very high achiever with so many different accolades in her own career, in the way that she's studied. She's built an empire in real estate. She has a nonprofit. She has a few books. We're going to talk about some of that today. You guys are going to hear amazing story from Betsy here. And then toward the end, we're going to talk about some more tactics around how she's built her businesses, how she views leadership, how she views building teams, some real tactical advice toward the end. So stay till the end here. As we're diving in, before we go into the podcast here with Betsy, I want to give everybody a free gift. Down below in the show notes, if you're listening, there is a free workshop I created for everybody as they're building an online brand to get to 6 and 7, to get those 7 figures, to be able to get consistency in ads and leverage AI. I put a whole workshop down below. Check that free gift out for you guys as you're listening. Betsy, I want to dive in here to the podcast here. And one of the questions I ask everybody that I really want to get your take on is, what is high performance? How does that look like in your life? You know, you're around a lot of go-getters. You only recruit those type of people. You've built some empires around it. You are one yourself. How do you kind of define and view that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that question. I think it's very individual, but for me, high performance means that I'm operating on all cylinders in all aspects of my life. So not just, I recognize that work is just one of many life pillars for myself. And so, my faith, my health, my contribution to society, my fun category or my hobbies, things that give me just pure joy, my relationships, they're all very important to me. So for me, high performance is how well am I operating on all of those, in all of those life pillars, so that I feel fulfilled and authentic. And I am my goal in life is to improve and empower the lives of others. So to what extent am I doing that on a daily basis?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit more for the audience to have some context. What do people know about you? What would you say that is your billboard of like your success, and people can get some context even more?
I'm known for my real estate. I have a large real estate brokerage in North Central Florida, and then I have spun off ancillary businesses that add value to our current customers. So whether they're buyers, sellers, or our agents. And so we have title, we offer mortgage services, we offer property management, we have a real estate school for our agents. And then we also have a nonprofit for serving those who honestly will never use our services through traditional means, but need housing. And so we have a nonprofit set up for that cohort of people.
That's so cool. When I hear about people that start nonprofits or build an empire like you have, I feel like it comes from a root of some either challenges that they overcome or some sort of building of worth that they had to really overcome at the very beginning of life. Or it's a wiring that they had from, being a Girl Scout, and they're just like wired a little bit different, where they're just like hustling. Bring us back to the very beginning of like your origin story, that you knew you were a little bit different and how you've been able to have the success you had.
I was a Girl Scout, interestingly. I had forgotten about that. And cookie sales were my thing. I was determined to be the highest selling cookie
Yeah.
in my troop. I forgot about that. But I don't know where it came from. I do think that, I've talked about this in other podcasts, but self-worth and self-confidence are very different. And I feel like in my family of origin, I'm so glad I'm one of two. I have a twin sister and an older sister and no brothers. And we were instilled with a high level of self-confidence, not in, I don't think in an arrogant way, but just in a very self-assured way. But I don't feel like, our self-worth was contingent on success, external success and accolades. And so I think that sadly, in retrospect, is what drove me, because that's how I felt that I was recognized and praised. So the more that I could achieve what the society deems as successful, I sought those things out. I think to feel value, which is a false sense of value, but that's what I've learned as an adult. But that's, I think, where it started from and stemmed from, is this yearning to feel of value um, to someone or something.
Hmm. I mean, you like when I look at your resume of sorts online. I mean, you've stacked wins
Mhm.
and wins and wins and wins, and it's like there's something to be said about that. And I want to ask your opinion on it too, because what I've found is winners just keep on winning. There's something about that, like that sort of things, and not saying that they don't have failures, they just kind of start compounding
Mhm.
because they have this tact or the ability to face
Mhm.
challenges, the resilience deep down. Like, talk about some of those things that you've seen, because I mean, you've recruited so many people now that
Mhm.
you could probably sort through who's
Mhm.
going to be continually winning and who's not. Let's talk about some of those things that you've seen in yourself, but also when you're recruiting and hiring people on your team.
I think the two things. So I was born with, I think, a thirst for growth. So I'm constantly seeking growth for myself.
Hmm.
I love it. It's where I feel most alive. And so it doesn't matter what it's in. I mean, it could be a subject I know nothing about, but I'm just always interested in learning and growing and being exposed to new things, new viewpoints, new ideas, new foods, new cultures. It doesn't matter that anything new, just in like it's like electricity to my body.
Hmm.
So I think that helps, having that kind of curiosity. Um, and then I don't have a fear of failure. And I think that's important. I truly think the most successful people fail the most, because they're willing to try, and you have to try so many things before one works. And so that I don't have a fear of failure, because I look at failure as a label, a human label that we decide if we want in our lives, and we decide if that's a adjective or a noun that we use to describe certain outcomes. And I just don't use that. That's just not in my vocabulary. For me, the worst case scenario, if something doesn't go the way I hoped or expected or wanted, is that I have to pivot, and I will have learned something very valuable that I get to take with me for the rest of my life. So that seems very reasonable. Like, that's not bad. It's maybe not what I thought I wanted, but it's still a great thing to have. So I'm not, failure doesn't present itself as an obstacle to me. And I do think that a lot of people sadly stop when they fear the first sense of, oh, they might fail. So that just doesn't, I'm not wired that way. And so I think that really helps to become successful, because you're just going to keep trying new things, and learning. I mean, that's the most valuable thing. In fact, I only learn, honestly, I learn the most when things don't work out, because that forces you to create, these new neural pathways and figure out, how could I do this differently? Whereas when things are going smoothly and great, there's not a lot of growth there, you know so yeah, so I think those growth and the lack of fear of failure, I think, helped me tremendously.
Yeah. And then when you hire people too, what have you found to be kind of the trick when you ask certain hiring questions to kind of gauge hey, this person's going to succeed or not?
Yeah, so we ask questions directly based on our core values. We have 8 core values in our company. And so we ask questions directly related to that and how they've exhibited that in their past, and also ask about their own personal values, and if they don't even have them, that's that's probably a sign that they might not be a good fit for us. I mean, we're looking for people who lead intentional lives. And so, um, and that weeds out a lot of people. A lot of people just live almost like Groundhog Day, just go with the flow. And so we're looking for people intentionally who, what's your ideal day? To share with me what you do. Your habits kind of show you what outcomes you're going to have. We also ask about how they stay current on whatever topic they're interested in. And a lot of people, unbelievably, they don't. They don't stay current. Like, how do you, and that's like a deal breaker for me. If you're not proactively staying current in something that you're interested in, that indicates to me a lack of a growth mindset. Um, and how do they network? Um, so those are the kinds of things that we ask for and look for.
That's good. That's good. I want to ask you, how do you balance some of this stuff? Because it's like you're a growth minded person. So it's like reading books, you're growing, expanding your companies. You've written a book here that we want to talk about here soon too. It's like you have so many things going on. You manage so many things. What has been the trick that's going to help you stay afloat and not feel overwhelmed with everything?
I don't feel like I have a lack of time, because I just live a very intentional life. I understand that time is my most precious asset, far and above anything else in the world. And so how I spend it is very intentional. And so, I don't watch TV. I don't sadly listen to the news. I mean, I say sadly because honestly, I don't, and I do get flack for this sometimes, but unless it's something fairly major, I don't know about it going on.
Hmm.
And I understand that. I know that, and I'm willing to suffer the consequences of that because one, the free space it takes up just physically, but also mentally is worth it to me. So I'm just very intentional about who I spend my time with, what I spend my time with, what I allow into my ears and my eyes. Um, I swore off lunch meetings years ago. In fact, a guy the other day said, "Let's meet for lunch." And I'm like, "Let's not." And I told him, I said, "I'm sorry." I said, "I just don't do lunches." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I said, I just don't do lunches. Like, to me, they're a waste of time. Like, and I eat lunch, by the way, but I've never liked business lunches. They to me take 2 hours when you can have a discussion for 20 minutes and accomplish what you wanted to accomplish. I don't need the lunch to go around it. So I'm just very intentional about what I say yes to. And I am cognizant when I say yes, what is it that I'm saying no to indirectly if I'm saying yes to this.
Yeah. And you're married and have kids too?
I was married. I have two children. But no, I got divorced. I left when I was 31. My children were 1 and 2. So, and then I got into real estate after that, actually.
Okay. How is that with raising kids with this driven tenacity to accomplish things and balance family life too?
I think it was actually a blessing. I don't wish it on anybody, by the way, but it happened. And but I have two daughters, and they got to see a mom, and I worked out of the house. So they didn't go to daycare. I was there. They saw me, they were around me. And this was in the early 2000s when perhaps it wasn't so common to have your kids at home with you while you're working. Um, but they saw everything. And they were a part of it. I mean, they were a part of they helped me with my logo and my colors. So I think that was, now they're 26 and 25, and they're just incredibly independent, thriving women. And I think a large part of it was because they were in the house that they were in, watching their mom and helping their mom grow her business.
Yeah. How do you have time writing your book?
So that was an initiative I took on 2 years ago. I just decided because I wanted to get this message out. And so I kind of break everything down. Any kind of goal I set, I'm like, okay, how do I make it manageable and not uncomfortable for me and realistic? And so I knew I could commit an hour a day, 5 days a week to writing. And so every morning, the first thing I did was I wrote for an hour a day. And that got me at the end of the year, my book. And then that's how I manage that. I'm
Hmm.
most productive in my mornings, and so I knocked it out during my most productive time. And then I'm a big believer of getting mentors that have been there and done that, and so don't have to reinvent the wheel. And so I hired like a writing coach, and so I had to submit. I think it was 20 pages every 2 weeks, and that I
Okay.
loved having that accountability.
Yeah.
And then she reviewed the work with me every 2 weeks. I revised it and then submitted the next 20. So that kept me on pace. And I felt like I was making significant progress having somebody who was a seasoned, they call him, this person was a developmental editor, and she really helped me make sure it flowed and made sense along
Yeah.
the way.
With mentorship too, I mean, building a nonprofit and then all these things that you're doing, talk about like the education part, the mentors that you've had, the investments that you had to make, and talk
Yeah.
about like sometimes the first time that you had to invest money for a mentor, but like that was probably something to be like to overcome.
But
You
yeah.
know?
When I got my first real estate coach probably 6 years in. I wish I'd gotten them from day one. In retrospect, when I saw how much value they added and how much they accelerate the learning curve and growth curve, I
Mhm.
thought, oh my gosh. Um, but it was a $25,000 check for the year, and that was very hard for me to stroke. But I've always the saying, if you don't invest in yourself, why would somebody else? Always rings in my head. And so best 25,000 I've ever spent. And so from then on, I went, doubled down on mentors. Some mentors are much more informal relationships. They're people in other industries that I may talk to on a, twice a year. Some I may just stalk on the internet, but others are more formal. But there's just so many people. Whatever you want to do, there's someone that's done it. So we don't have to, and they want to help you. If they know that you want help and are humble enough to seek help, most people want to help people that want helped. So, and I don't think people realize that. I'm always so in awe when, like, an 18-year-old, I live in a university town, and on rare occasion, I would say maybe once every 2 to 3 years, an 18 or 19-year-old will contact me directly and ask to meet with me just to learn from me. And I always say yes, because I'm so impressed by their ambition and their resourcefulness to do this at that age that they are at. So I try to pay it forward too. But yeah, I'm a huge proponent of the mentors and the coaching that I've received.
Because I mean, you've built now a school for all of your real estate brokers too. So I mean, I can see that you want to empower them in the
Mhm.
same way that you've been empowered.
Yeah. Yeah. That's my goal. That's when I feel that I've, you know, made an impact, is improving and empowering the lives of others. My agents and staff are my first line of customers, and then the buyers and the sellers.
When did you learn that like delegation and then duplication of yourself? Because it's like there's one thing to be, a real estate agent, but then you have a brokerage and now you have a title company, a mortgage company, and like a management company. Like you started just
Yeah.
stacking these things. Where did that diversification start in your career?
Um, well, with the coach, once I got the brokerage, because I was kind of flailing, not flailing in terms of not doing well, but I had a bunch of agents working for me because they just wanted to work. They just wanted to hang their license somewhere. So I said, sure. And I had no plan. This is when I started. I wanted to be a solo broker. But then within about 2 years, I had all these agents working for me. I offered nothing. I was working out of my house still. I just put up desks in the garage. It was getting to be a little bit chaotic. And that's when I got the coach. And then, he's like, Betsy, you got to go big or go home. I'm like, well, I'm already home. Let's go big.
That's
so
hilarious.
and so then he started me on the path of, okay, we've got this, we got to build this. And so we built the brokerage. And then when you build the brokerage and you were in real estate, you got to start letting go of, first you let go of buyers and you let go of sellers, and then you're really just managing the people who are servicing your buyers and your sellers. But I do get bored easily too. And so then once I had the brokerage stabilized, I said, okay, now what can I add that will add value to either my agents or my buyers or my sellers? And that's how I started adding on the additional businesses. That was just a natural fit to the real estate transaction.
Hmm.
Already, these people already need title or mortgage, or maybe they want to rent their house because they can't sell it. Maybe they're investors and then they buy from us and then they want someone to property manage. So that's how all the ancillary businesses came to be, is just figuring out what other services can we provide our current group of customers.
Yeah. And then why start a nonprofit?
Oh yeah. So, I I do have a giving heart. That I think I was just born with in the family that I was raised in, and a duty to give back. And when I was in graduate school, I was so blessed to have, I was taking, I mean, I was in the business, I was getting an MBA, but one of the classes was gutting row homes in West Philadelphia. And I've always loved houses. And so I said, okay, I'll do that. Well, we got to gut the row homes, rebuild them. And then unbeknownst to me, we then got to sell them, quote unquote, sell them, because most of those supplies and labor were donated. And we were selling these homes at cost to cost burdened families in the Philadelphia area. So I got to see what a house does to the trajectory of a family. And that had a lasting impact on me. So then when I got into real estate and I wanted to serve, I thought, well, what better way to serve than serving a population that needs our services but cannot afford our services? So it was just, again, a natural fit into what the space I was already in, and wanting to give back. It was just a natural
Yeah.
extension.
Talk about the mindset that you've had to have all these years. And there's a part of winners that, like you're talking about before, with just the fear. You don't have fear. You just press forward with what's before you. But talk about some of this mindset of like discipline that you're seeing so many people not have, and how they can overcome that and really kind of stack those wins and that mental growth that they need to have.
Mm-hmm. Well, two things with mindset. One is having a mindset of abundance and not scarcity is critical. But then also with the discipline, I always tell agents, so when you go into real estate, and most people in real estate, it was not their first career, it was a second career. And most of them have left a stable paying job with benefits. So you have to have discipline because you're running even when you're a, an agent under a broker, you're still running your own business under the brokerage.
Right.
So you don't have anybody telling you what to do. If you don't make your calls and having your conversations, you're not going to have sales. And there's this myth that real estate income for an agent is very unpredictable. And what I tell agents is the income is not unpredictable. It is commensurate with your habits. So if you have inconsistent habits, you're going to have inconsistent income. If you have consistent habits, you will have consistent income in real estate.
Yeah. And that's really the principle of sales. I've been in the sales career for such a long time, and I realized that being rejected more than you are affirmed in
Mhm.
things,
Oh yeah.
it's a different style of a career altogether. And not many people win on that because they're just not wired, or they're not aware of the challenges they're going to face sometimes. But it's just about that consistency, the intentionality that you're talking about. And
Mhm.
I think it overlaps in so many areas of your life. The time you go to bed, time you go to sleep, when you wake up, how you prep your meals, how you do fitness, how do you educate, how do you train people? Like, what are those things that you've had to see and overcome even in your own life of, when you've had the divorce and then raising kids and building these empires? It's like was there a switch in your mind of like, now I'm after it.
Yeah. Yes. So the switch was when I was 31, 32, when in a very short period of time, I found myself suddenly single with 1 and 2-year-old daughters, and I was laid off. I was a part of a major corporate layoff in the
Mm.
pharmaceutical industry. And so that was and at the time, I didn't have a lot of life pillars. I didn't understand. I, they don't teach you how to build a life in these
No,
schools that I go to.
no.
So I felt like I had all this education, but no one taught me the skills on how to build a life. And at the time, the pillars in my life were my marriage, my job, and my children. And 2 of the 3 were gone. And when you're sitting on a 3-legged stool and 2 legs go out, you land on the floor. And that's what I did. I moved back home. And when I say I moved back home, most people think I moved back to my hometown. I moved back to my childhood bedroom in my parents' house. And my children lived in what were my sister's bedrooms when I was growing up down the hall. And I spent the next 6 months figuring out, okay, how do I never find myself in this situation again? And how do I build a solid foundation for myself and my children? Um, again, so that we aren't in this predicament. And so that was the switch. Best thing that ever happened to me.
Right. I was just going to touch on that because I feel like sometimes people look at it as tragedies, and sometimes it's like, this just happened and I just got to overcome it. And those almost become the foundational cornerstones of this new life in perspective about from the challenges, not that defines you, but really anchors in a memorable part of growth.
Yeah.
It's like lighting the fire that you have. Like in real estate, you think about like the drive of the tenacity that you had to go to make those calls, to pump yourself up, to make those hard things to make it happen. It's like if you don't have those anchoring parts, sometimes it's hard to kind of build from there. And I think so many people have that. Do you write about that in your book at all?
Um, not so much, not so much from that angle. No.
Talk to us a little bit about your book a little bit so that people get some perspective of what that's about.
The book is, the book is called Breaking Boxes, Dismantling the Metaphorical Boxes That Bind Us. And it's about my story on how I found myself, um, confined by boxes that either society, my industry, gender, my race, myself. I mean, it comes at us from all angles. These expectations, these opinions, these attitudes, these stereotypes that are found, and expected of us. And I reached a point in my life where I just felt like I was tired of living in these boxes. And why was I staying in boxes that no longer or maybe never served me? And so it's about the journey of first being aware that you're in a box, because you can't get out of a box you're not even aware you're in. And then how do you get out of a box if you know it's not right for you anymore? And so that is what the book is about.
That's cool. I'm gonna get it, and I want some of our followers that's listening in to go check that out because I think that would be helpful for people to get some context around that. I want to ask you this too, touching on your book here. So many times we have this delusion that we don't even know that we're in, right? It's like all of a sudden we could be sad, and then until someone says, "Hey, you're just like depressed," or you're stuck, or hey, you have this train of thought and you feel stuck, and it's like I don't even know I'm stuck
Mhm.
until someone calls you out and kind of looks at some of this stuff. And so when you're talking about boxes and the clarity around this, it's like to awaken that understanding around certain areas that they need to help them with. How do you kind of sort through that?
People say that, like, how do I even know I'm in a box? And what I have found, and I think when I've spoken with other people, they too, your first sign, your body will tell you before your mind. Your body knows when there's an incongruency that you may not rationally know. And so for me, it was a practice of getting more in touch with how I'm feeling, which was not something, it's another thing I didn't learn in school
Right.
was emotions and feelings and identifying them and healthily processing them instead of just, I would just in the years ago, I would just ignore them and just go into the I think it's the prefrontal cortex. And what do you think, Betsy? What do the facts tell you? And just totally ignore what my body was telling me. So the first step would be get in alignment and get used to understanding and um, being aware of how you feel. And then trusting those feelings, and moving towards that which feels good. For me, writing things down is very helpful. Writing what I'm feeling down, writing what I'm fearing down. I don't have fear of failure, but some people stay in boxes because they fear change or something that's unexpected, or the unknown. That's a muscle that's a muscle to me, your response to being uncomfortable. And so I say to myself, I'm most comfortable being uncomfortable because I know I'm growing if I'm uncomfortable. And so it's one of my things. I have a daily tracker, habit tracker. And one of the things that I track daily is, did I put myself in an uncomfortable situation today? And I purposely try to do that at least once a day, even if it's just a cold shower that I take every morning, because I don't like cold. And maybe that's the only thing that made me uncomfortable that day, but it does build up that resistance muscle. But maybe it's another fear. Maybe it's a fear of loss of either status or social connection that you fear, that's why you don't want to make this move because you might upset some people. Or maybe it's a financial security. I know when I went into real estate, I was very worried about leaving that industry that was a very well-paying industry with great benefits to going into being a real estate agent. So identifying the fear and figuring out how can I diminish that fear and still move in the direction of my dreams.
What are some of those non-negotiables or daily disciplines that you have anchored in your life right now?
Um, well, I don't know about non-negotiables, but I have a habit tracker. So those are kind of habits that um, I track. And once those habits become ingrained, they fall off of my habit tracker and I put new ones on. But in terms of things that are non-negotiable, like I'm very into health and longevity. And so I like cardio, I like strength training. I take a variety of different supplements. I do my ice. Um, I don't do ice baths. I do a cold shower in the morning. So that health is a big non-negotiable for me. Because I know time is our most precious asset, but if we don't have health, time is not of value. So health is very important. So that I do, I'm very big into a gratitude journal that really reframes how you look at things in the world. What else do I do that's non-negotiable? Um, I have 2 rescue pets, and their quality of life is incredibly important to me, and so that takes some of my time, especially because one's in a difficult health state. Um, th- that'd be the big ones.
Yeah, I love that. I
Yeah,
appreciate you sharing.
yeah,
And how can people follow you and connect with you further?
yeah. So thank you. My website, betsypepine.com, just my name, and then I'm on all the social channels at my name, which is again at Betsy Pepine.
Okay. I'll put some of those links down below. Go follow Betsy. She's an amazing person. Make sure to go get her new book that it just launched in September. She has a course that's coming out that's tied to that too. So if you're interested, make sure to reach out to her because that's just about to launch as well to kind of see her story and then also kind of help define some more of those things. And then if you're still listening too, make sure to check out that workshop down below if you're wanting to grow. That's going to be really helpful for you in your personal brand. And thank you for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode.